This podcast is recorded on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, who were our first teachers and storytellers. I extend my respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Welcome to the Habit Nerd podcast. I'm Dr. Bree Hearn, and if you're interested in habits, those tiny, powerful behaviours that shape who we are and what we achieve, you've absolutely landed in the right place. Join me each week as I interview a wide range of experts, dive into evidence-based strategies, and give you practical tools to help you build habits that stick and break the ones that hold you back. Hi there, Habit Nerds, and welcome to today's episode of the Habit Nerd podcast. My guest today that I'm very lucky to welcome is Karen Dennett. Now, Karen is an educator, a business mentor, and she works with women starting and running micro businesses who are also doing that alongside running other employment or family life. Karen's work is really relevant to you and to me, Habit Nerd listeners, because it sits at the intersection of habit formation, clarity, and making sustainable change. Karen gives women in micro and solo businesses the clarity, structure, and confidence they need to sustainably grow on their own terms. Through her signature Hello Monday method, which is rooted in Kaizen principles of consistent, small, and meaningful steps, Karen helps women shift from overwhelm to intentional progress using practical tools, guided strategy sessions, and a deeply supportive community. A warm welcome to you, Karen, to the Habit Nerd podcast, and thank you for spending some time with us today.
Thank you for having me here today. I'm really excited to talk about habits and how you can do them effectively.
Great. All right. So speaking of that, Karen, let's jump in. What is a habit that you have that you believe creates a positive flow-on effect in the way that you live your life?
Okay, so as you mentioned, working, I'm also a full-time teacher, run a business. One of my habits I find is to actually spend one intentional hour a week working on my business, working at what I want to do to build my business. And I do this it's a bit of a clarity ritual. I do this on a Sunday night, and it really helps me to work out where I am, focused and niching on a small part of my business that I want to grow, but also think about my intentions for the week. I am diagnosed ADHD. So I find that unless I've got the big picture thinking of what's happening that week, it's a really huge challenge for me waking up on a Monday. So Sunday night, I usually spend that 1 hour of focused, quiet time working through working on something specific for my business, but also giving myself the time to set my intentions and work out where I'm going that week.
So 1 hour, you can do all of that in 1 hour on a Sunday.
Yes, I find that if I've got the focus and I can hyper focus in that 1 hour, and if I've got the activities that I use, so I focus on I work through a very small element of my business, but I also do the intention setting. So I identify big picture, where I'm going, what I'm doing that week, and I incorporate any new intentions from that specific focus that I've done on my business that I really need to develop. And it's those things that are at the back of your head, and you know, when you think, oh, you know, I really need to focus on, say, my branding, or I really need to focus on you know, how I'm going to promote this week. And it's really important that you give yourself that time, because it just sits there in the back of your mind and you just constantly feel like you're not good enough and you're not doing the right thing. So when having that 1 hour a week really helps me to hyper focus and get that done.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Karen. So you do that 1 hour planning. If you're a full-time teacher, where do you execute the steps that you've planned for in that 1 hour on a Sunday? Where do you roll out that intention?
Yeah, well, that's all part of the hour. That's actually working out what time I have. I'm very, Google Calendar is kind of my best friend. And also, so are huge whiteboards and diaries. I have to, I allow myself a certain amount of time. So obviously I've got my block time where I'm at school. and I allow myself time in the evening. I give myself a little bit of time in the evening, give myself time to decompress. But if you don't, I have to block those things in.
Mm,
So, and when, for me, clarity, understanding exactly what it is that I need to do means that when I sit down to do it, to execute it, I know where I'm going and what has to
mm,
be done. If
mm,
you don't do that planning and that forethought, then you come to sit down to do something and you kind of don't really know where you're going with it. So
mm.
I find that the combination of planning ahead, thinking about what I want to achieve, where I'm going, what do I want to do with business, and then having those set times to then execute those actions, it makes it way more effective.
Yeah, that's thank you for clarifying it, Karen. A few things I'm picking up on there, which I think are important to unpack. The first one is that idea that if it doesn't get scheduled, it won't get done. And I think the fact that you're blocking it in realistic chunks throughout the week where you can actually see that it is achievable to do. I think the second thing you said is such a really good reminder for me, and I'm sure for our listeners, that when you've already scheduled it in and it's got a clear title and a spot and potentially a color in your Google Calendar, as you say, it takes away that decision sort of hurdle. What am I spending this tiny block of time on? And then, as you say, the self esteem of when you've spent some time on something that really wasn't the best use of that time, or that you think, oh, that's actually not going to move the needle, or that wasn't that important, I should have done something else. And that's not a great headspace to be in, is it? The third thing I really appreciate, and it's, I mean, I love these podcast episodes. They just drop into my world at exactly the right time. I did an Instagram post yesterday that's dropped this morning about Sunday planning. So you and I had not pre-thought this conversation. I've asked you that question and that's been your answer. For me, the third part that I was reflecting on is that there's something about the feeling of visualizing a week unfolding in a really positive way that gives me, I suppose it's that principle of visualization, and it really raises my vibration to how it's going to feel when I've done these things that have been on my mind or that have been worrying me. And it really, even before the event has occurred, I get a sense of calm and a positive feeling around it. So I find that really helpful. Does that resonate for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, before I used to do this and practice this ritual, I was very scattergun,
Mm,
and I found that was more stressful and difficult to manage with the children and with work and everything else because um, you kind of have an idea of what you want to do, but it's like say it's so hazy that when you then try to do it, it's easy for other distractions to get in your way
mm,
because you don't clearly know what you need to get done.
yes.
And yeah, visualizing as well, like say the positive, seeing those things happening, you make them work because you know what has to happen.
Yeah, I completely agree. Thank you so much, Karen. That's a great one to start the new year off with, actually. Just a really kind of intentional 1 hour planning. Do you set a timer? Are you very strict around the 1 hour?
Not sorry, not necessarily. I do make sure that I still get to do things that I want to do on the
Hmm.
weekend. And so if I'm like sometimes I might do it, say 6 o'clock. And other times if I've had a full day and I've got dinner to make and we're having dinner a little bit late, I'll set the time for 8 to 9
Hmm.
or maybe even 9 to 10. I won't go beyond 10 o'clock, but
Yeah.
it's my time for me that I allow
Mm,
on a Sunday night. And
mm,
yeah, it is really important to actually have that. I do run a session with my community on a Tuesday evening
hmm.
where they do something similar. And I'm just there to facilitate and support and answer questions and guide them, and they get to work that hour, but with the accountability of having other people there.
Yeah, that's really important, isn't it? That social proximity of other people. And I think I really like that even if you do it 9 p.m. till 10 p.m., because you've chosen that and because that's on your terms, you go into that with positivity. You're not looking at the clock going, oh, why am I doing this at 9 p.m.? Well, because I chose to do this. This suits me. I've, done, as you say, dinner with your family and, hopefully some rest and some fun on your Sunday. So that
Yeah,
very clear intention is really puts a positive, spin on that for sure.
yeah.
Karen, what
Definitely.
about, is there a habit that you're trying to break currently because you feel it isn't aligned or it isn't currently serving you?
I think probably the one thing that I know I'm really guilty of is that need to want to get everything done at once.
Mm,
And sometimes a habit of mine can be I try to overachieve.
mm,
And I set myself too many intentions or I set myself too many goals. And then I get disappointed with myself if I don't achieve them. So something that I've learned is actually, and what I'm working on is actually trying to be really realistic about what I can achieve with my time,
mm,
and not saying yes to people that I really shouldn't be saying yes to those projects, and
mm,
actually being more mindful of yeah, just not taking all of it on, because it's one way to plan, but like you say, the execution is really important.
mm,
So one of the habits that I'm trying to break, I would probably say, is just saying yes and agreeing straight away
mm,
without actually thinking that, trying to say, give me some time, I'll have a little think and I'll get back to you. So that's
mm.
really started to put into place now.
That's a really great strategy. I think a good reminder for us all just to take a beat before we answer. Nobody's expecting a yes straight away.
Yeah,
And particularly if it's, something challenging on our time or if it means it's something every time we say yes to something, we have to say no to something else, don't we? So
yeah,
that's a really, really powerful reminder. Now, Karen, you work with this idea of, and it's Japanese, isn't it? The Kaizen principles.
yeah,
So obviously we need to hear a bit about them. So how can these Kaizen principles be applied to starting or growing a side hustle or what you call a micro business alongside a job without overwhelming your existing life?
yes. Well, Kaizen is learned in high school and university programs. It's Kaizen is a principle that was employed by Toyota to in the concept of production, but also across the company to where everyone is involved in the process. But obviously, on a micro business level, it's just you, but you are the person doing everything. So the Kaizen was essentially making small, continuous improvements that lead to sustainable progress and success over time. And what we tend to do is we tend to, I've noticed this a lot with women with micro businesses as well, is you just tend to do these intensive blocks of learning and you get really excited, really energized, and you're all ready to go and you've got all these plans, but then it doesn't happen and you can't execute because then life takes over and other things
Mm,
happen.
mm,
So there are many things that we can improve in the process of our business. So especially as a micro business, we have to think obviously about our mindset, our time management, our how we manage risk, dealing with our future focus and planning, but also things like our branding, our messaging, how are we showing up. The customer journey is so key important for micro business owners, because we build it. One thing that we're really great at is sharing value and developing relationships. That's something that as women we do as well in business, and
mm,
anyone really in small business has that relationship building, but also that sort of manageable revenue and growth that you can gain through really simple activities like building collaborations, building a referral network, and like gaining networks and so on. So um, Kaizen essentially is about making those small steps, but spending that time to work on and working out how do we actually improve and develop and take ourselves one step further. And that is essentially how it's been adapted, but for a micro business approach rather than a large multinational corporation and big production lines where they look at
Mm.
small continuous improvements. It's
Mm-hmm.
how can I, as a small micro business that is delivering value, that is still has customers, still has the basic, the essential business structure, but on a very micro level.
Mm-hmm.
So how can I make these small continuous improvements on a manageable scale? So a small improvement each week and develop and work on that aspect of my business, but also then implement that into my intentions and then achieve that small step.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually seen one of I call her my star pupil, but one of my clients, she has just gone from strength to strength. The mindset section and has built her confidence, and she's worked through exactly how she's fitting everything in,
Mm-hmm.
what is important to her, how she's going to build her lifestyle business, and so on. And she's actually implemented the messaging, looked at how she's building her expert equity, looked at collaborations, and yeah, she's now really thriving in her business. She has her own podcast. She's really just to see her like bloom and the confidence in like she's just I think that clarity and really understanding your value as well
Mm.
and knowing how you're going to share that and do that through these small consistent steps.
Mm.
It just makes you feel like you're making progress. And as well, small wins make a huge difference as well, because once you have a small win, it reinforces that and it kind of like validates and confirms that you're on the right step.
Mm.
So yeah, that's how the principles of that small continuous improvement and looking at the actual running and the on the day-to-day basis, how do we make a difference and how do we
Mm.
change and improve? And it's just applied to a micro business level.
Yeah, that's really I love the clarity. It's really achievable. So I think there's a lot of self-kindness in there that it's, we're being really realistic around it being alongside lots of other, passions and responsibilities around family and other work.
Yeah.
What um, interested in, Karen, is how, like, say, for example, your star pupil, how is she tracking progress if it's not just with money in a micro business like she's got?
She is an accountant, so she's very good at monitoring the measurables.
Mm-hmm.
It's around her sense of what she is achieving in her business.
Mm-hmm.
So, looking, constantly reflecting on, where she was before and where she is now,
Mm-hmm.
looking at those wins, looking at those areas that have been achieved, but also identifying how she is engaging with the customers. But it's a lot of it as well as I think how you feel inside. How
Mm.
do you feel that you are progressing? Because as a small business, most of the reasons that I see that women set up businesses is it is important to income is one thing, but and you want to achieve the standard business goals of profitability. You need to be profitable. You need to make money. But most women that I see usually create a business because they want to have a sense of accomplishment. They want to have a sense of purpose, like they're making a difference.
Mm.
And that's probably why many women do struggle to say no, because they
Mm.
really want to help people and make
Yeah.
a difference. A lot of women see that they don't really have the clarity around what their business is and what it does.
Mm.
And so a lot of these tracking the progress isn't always necessarily quantitative tracking,
Yeah. Yep.
but it's more a qualitative, what feedback am I getting from my customers? How am I engaging? Do my relationships with my customers feel richer? Do I feel like I know what I'm doing? Do I feel less stressed? Do I feel less anxious? Do I feel like I've got purpose? Do I feel accomplished? Do I feel like I'm in where I need to be right now? And I
Mm.
think a lot of that comes from reflecting and journaling more so than
Mm.
actually tracking against specific quantifiable goals, because that's why women do, and that's usually why women do leave and drop their businesses, is because they're no longer fulfilling.
Mm.
They're not doing what they wanted to do anymore. And so they either close their business or they just pass it on to somebody else.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying all of that, Karen. It's something I think about a lot is that and in terms of habit formation as well. So if we're not even talking about from a business sense, but say you're starting, a new exercise habit or something, you're not going to get, if you go for a swim, you're not going to get, your body's not going to look any different the day you start swimming. You're not going to get out of the water. Apart from being wet, your body looks exactly the same. So I'm really interested in this idea of reflecting and really broadening out what success and what achievement can feel like. And I really think I'm really grateful that you've broken it down to all of those different measures. Say for your accountancy client, obviously, the quantitative, the money she's earning, the amount of clients, the hours she's working would be really quantifiable, important measures. But it would be all of the other things that I think sustains the motivation, gives you that kind of ongoing feedback that, yes, I'm on the right track. But I think it's so powerful that your work gets people to look for what those markers are. And I think it's a really great encouragement for all of us to broaden out that, purpose led, values driven. It doesn't matter whether it's a business or something that doesn't make money, and that's maybe
Yeah.
you're a volunteer, or maybe it's your work as a parent, or maybe it's in your caring responsibilities, or you are trying to start a new kind of fitness habit or a well-being type habit. It is so important to not get stuck in the weeds of just the numbers, because as you say, that's where if you're looking for that to be the only measure and you're not getting that quick enough, you just feel like you're failing. So I think that's so wonderful. You mentioned it in your answer, but I'd like to break it open a little bit more, Karen.
Yeah.
You say that it's clarity and not confidence that's often the missing piece in habit consistency. Can you explain a bit more by what you mean by that?
Yeah, of course. So, for me, clarity, when we mentioned it earlier as well with the weekly habit, planning ahead. Um, when you actually have that clarity around what you want to achieve, who you are, what your messaging is, where you are, what your customer journey is, what your boundaries are. So, boundaries is a really important activity within the Helen Monday practice. Understanding, who you need to collaborate with. But I think a lot of what the clarity that my clients gain and through the practice is around what is my criteria, what is my standards, because you can't make any decisions and move forward if you don't know what that criteria is.
Mm,
So there's a lot of, for example, in deciding who you want to collaborate with, you need to have your non-negotiables in terms of like who, do you have that aligned values? Do you have, the right, are you within a certain time zone, or, what is important to you?
mm,
Once you set those standards and you gain that clarity around exactly what you want, the rest of it is so much easier
mm,
to decide. And the most of the processes that are within the workbook and as part of the practice, that most of them do have that setting criteria, identifying what you want, what is important to you,
mm,
and getting that clarity. Because once you have that clarity and you know what is important, you can then gain that structure as well.
mm.
So, deciding, for example, your referral networks or your collaborators or who you want, what is important to you in terms of what you want to achieve through your business. Where do you want to be in 5 years, 3 years, 1 year? What does that mean in terms of what I need to get done and prioritize now? Those
Mm,
types of important questions that you need to ask yourself for the clarity. Once you have the structure, you can then have the confidence and I guess, the ease to be able to develop. Because sometimes we sit there and say, I don't really know what I want to do.
mm,
I just know I want to like feel better, or I know I need to do better. But if you don't have a really clear idea of what better actually means, and you haven't
mm.
defined it and you haven't got that clarity around what your criteria and your standards are, it's really hard to make decisions. So then planning and actually implementing and executing becomes so much harder.
Yeah, it's really really supportive way to look at it, isn't it? The knowing exactly what it is that you say, for example, a referral network that you've used that example, you then know what to look for. So you filter out everything that's not that. And I think there's that principle of like the reticular activating system you've probably heard of. Once you've zoned in on something, you're more likely to look for those things and those opportunities are more likely to present themselves. And everything else that's just noise is kind of outside your peripheral vision. So I think that's really helpful. The other thing that I really appreciate, which you've said, is that it's probably the confidence that comes from the clarity rather than the other way around. So a lot of us think
Yeah.
that we have to have a sense of confidence to start something, and we see somebody else do something and we think, oh, well, I could never do that. But actually, that person probably just had the clarity to take the first step, and then the confidence came as they started feeling that sense of the small wins, or the achievement like you touched on before.
Yeah, I see that from all ages. So I teach high school, and you have to embed those small wins into the learning program and give young people the opportunity. And it works with that. It's exactly the same with adults because
Mm,
right, we need to see that achievement, because when we get that achievement, it's just that validation that we're okay, we're doing it
mm,
right. And
mm,
so I genuinely, yeah, believe that that clarity, confidence comes from having the clarity. It doesn't come from, because also it really gives you that sense of assertiveness as well. Because if you know what your standards are, if you know what is important to you, and you can, there are little steps in the practice as well in terms of how you can share and communicate your standards and your boundaries and what's important to you and how you can
mhm.
use that to reach out. So once you understand that, you can have a conversation with confidence because you've already done the evaluation and the thinking process. So if
Mm,
someone asks you, oh, why do you think that's a good idea? You can say, well, actually, and then you can give them all the reasons and all the process that you've gone through. So if you've got that clarity, you know exactly why you're doing something, what you want to do, and the purpose and the meaning behind it. You have more confidence not only in what you're doing, but also in how you communicate and share that with others.
yeah, because the why is so clear, isn't it? You've done the pre-thinking, you've done the kind of values-driven work. I really can see the synergy in all of your work here, Karen. I love the Sunday planning. The idea that it's called Hello Monday as a framework is really supportive. Your clients are so lucky to have you have done that thinking for them to hold their hands while they step out this really important clarity work. Um, Is there anything you want to leave our habit listeners with, Karen, that we haven't covered so far?
I would say, obviously, it's called Hello Monday. I do it on a Sunday, and we also do the community work on a Tuesday. I would say get yourself some really good business friends.
Mm,
Having accountability is a really, having someone to share those ideas with is really important,
hmm
but also having that accountability as well. Um, if you do struggle with committing to an hour a week, because sometimes things just crop up,
hmm
having that calendar and diarising in. So like our Tuesday sessions, when women show up, we just work for an hour with the microphone off, but the video on, so there's no
mm,
thing. Everyone's working, and then sharing those intentions and sharing with other people what you're going to do that week
mm, mm,
and what your key takeaway is. And reflection really helps to take it out of your mind and make it real as
mm,
well. So I think having those people to connect with that you can share with, having a little bit of accountability helps. Being able to work with other people makes a huge difference.
mm.
And if you if there is I've got a one of the sessions is a free download. It's just like a starting point, so I can share that link with you.
That'd be fabulous. I'll put that in
So
our show notes. Thank you, Karen.
yeah, so that's just like a free download. It just gives an opportunity. There's a every activity has an explainer video, so there's an explainer video that will get emailed with the download. So that just is a nice first step, just to experience and have a little think and reflect on your customers that you're reaching with that particular task. But I would just say, honestly, find really good business friends,
Mm,
get you who understand what you're going through, and what you're trying to juggle, and they experience a similar thing,
mm.
and just work together and do that reflection. I think once you know where you are, what the standards are, and what you want to achieve, it makes all that decision making and all the work so much easier.
Yeah, I completely agree. You've touched on so many important principles there, Karen. That idea that to join a group where the desired behavior is the normal behavior. So that's exactly, what your Tuesday evening group is doing.
Yeah.
That reminds me of when I was writing my thesis that I would turn up to these sessions called Shut Up and Write on a Friday. And it was, we'd all have to, turn our Zoom on and we would let each other know what we needed to get done by morning tea or whatever. And as you say, that accountability of camera on, mic off, writing, and then we would check in. How did you go? What did you write about? Where did you get to, etc. It's almost as if even on the worst, say in your community on the Tuesday, you could have had the worst day at work. You could be exhausted. You might not know what you're going to get out of that, but just turning up is the step that will just get you in. So it's almost that, that group accountability and that sort of social support from each other. And keeping that promise to yourself, because there's a real piece of integrity there, isn't it? That you've got it in your diary and that you show up and that you didn't make an excuse. And that's like another piece of feedback that I'm the sort of person who can keep to a schedule and I can do what I said I was going to do. And all of those things are sort of side benefits of the actual learning that, that people are doing alongside one another. So I think
Yeah,
that's really wonderful.
absolutely. And the feedback from, the women as they do it, that especially in the conversation afterwards, they're like, I never realized that this was an option, or I never realized like what I was thinking, and that
Wow.
shares, and that sometimes people share their fears as well. I just can't see a purpose in what I'm doing, and why would anyone be interested in it? And this is holding me back. And everyone contributes to the
Mm.
conversation and says, well, why would you think that? And and they share their thoughts, and so it's almost like a mini research activity as well, because you're getting other people's feedback on your product
Yeah.
services. If anyone gets stuck, I just jump into a breakout room with them and help them.
Oh,
So if
how
they're not really
lovely.
sure what they're doing, I just say, yeah, jump in a breakout room. Everyone else carries on working, and we just have a little chat about what are you stuck with, and we have a work through it.
Mm. And I would imagine, I mean, I'm sure some men would appreciate that too, but as women, I think there's a real connection piece there too, isn't there? That's sort of and yeah, how lovely that they've got you as a mentor to, bounce those ideas off. And obviously there's that group vulnerability and everything that everyone, the collective, what is it? The rising boat,
A
the
rising
rise,
tide lifts all boats.
rising tide
Yeah,
lifts all boats. Yeah, that's very much realized in that sort of scenario that you've
yeah,
set up.
absolutely.
Yeah.
They feel
Yeah.
safe, and that's something that I find I could have done men and women together.
Hmm.
But what I have noticed is working with women is that when you're with other women, you can the vulnerability goes up, and when you're
Right.
vulnerable, you grow. If you don't step out of your comfort zone, but in a lot of sort of working activities, I teach boys and I teach girls,
Hmm.
and I work with women. I find that in these circles and working with women, everything that I've created actually is designed for how women learn.
Mm.
But that vulnerability is the point where when you are vulnerable and you share your fears, that's when you get so much valuable feedback, and you just grow from it.
Mm. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Um, Karen, where can our Habit Nerd listeners engage with your work in the future? So I'll have, the free download linked in the show notes and your Instagram, but is there anything you'd like us to know in terms of getting in contact with you?
Yeah, of course. So there's different ways. So you can either email me, which is hello@karendennett.com. Just drop me an email, or you can follow me on Instagram, Karen Dennett MMM. And also my website is karendennett.com, and there's all the Hello Monday information and how to reach out to me is there as well.
Great. All right. So, multiple ways that we can get in touch.
Yeah.
Karen, I want to say a big thank you for all of your wisdom and all of the stories that you've given us today. I've gained a huge amount from it, and I know that our Habit Nerd audience would have as well. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks for being here for another episode of the Habit Nerd podcast. I am so grateful for your time. If you enjoyed it or gained a fresh perspective, please share it with a friend, or maybe you feel like giving it a 5-star review, which will take you less than 30 seconds. I do love all of my habit nerds, and I see you showing up every day as your wonderful selves. So until next time, take care.